Just the one of these.
See again.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, everyone, we're going live in about 25 seconds.
Good afternoon and welcome to the second day of the Commonwealth Trade and Investment Summit for 2021. My name is Samantha Cohen and I'm the CEO of CWEIC. And this session this afternoon is our final, but possibly one of our most important sessions over this two-day conference. We're fortunate to have a distinguished panel here this afternoon to talk to you about the African opportunity and the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. The two-day summit that we have held has been extraordinarily successful in that we've had thousands of participants from across the Commonwealth, and we've covered a wide range of subjects. But it's fitting to end on this subject today, and it will be chaired by Alisupo Shasore. Supo is the Distinguished Chair of CWEIC's Nigerian Advisory Board and Chair of our Commonwealth Legal Network. He is a Senior Advocate of Nigeria, a Fellow Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and a partner at the leading commercial law firm Africa Law Practice. Supo was Attorney General of Lagos from 2007 to 2011 and is the former chairman of the Law Reform Commission of Lagos and a former president of the Lagos Court of Arbitration. He was consulted by the public sector on reforms in the electric power sector, and he was secretary of the Presidential Petroleum Revenue Special Task Force and recently a resource person to the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals in connection with the roadmap for the growth and development of the Nigerian mining industry. Supo is also a trustee of the Legal History Society of Nigeria and is a historian and writer of Journey of an African Colony, a 7-part epic documentary series presently showing on Netflix. A very distinguished and talented chair of our Nigerian Council. I will now hand over to Supo. Thank you, Supo.
Thank you very much, Sam. And thank you for the nice introduction. Thank you for all the work you and your team are doing at the Secretariat of the Commonwealth Trade and Investment Council. Welcome again, the last session. It promises to be a special one. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'd have enjoyed all the discussions prior to ours. And I just hope this will be I trust this will be a fitting final piece. As we discussed yesterday, we conceived this summit when the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting and the Commonwealth Business Forum were postponed for the second time in June 2021. And we all know what a marvelous year 2020 was that has caused us to have to postpone such an auspicious meeting. The summit is designed to help us focus on the priorities of the Commonwealth businesses and the governments. And so we go into this busy year for the Commonwealth. Now, Africa will be at the heart of many of the discussions surrounding Commonwealth countries and their trade and investment interests. It means that Africa is important to the Commonwealth, not just because 19 out of 54 countries are members of the Commonwealth, but because actually the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting and the Commonwealth Business Forum will be in one of my favorite countries, Rwanda. I love Kigali, so we're looking forward to that, finally, to get there. Since the last CBF was held, Africa has changed a lot. A lot has happened. If nothing at all, we've got 54 signatories to the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and we now have 40 ratifications. And lots of records are being broken by African countries and just getting the momentum to get this single market going. So it's a momentous time for Africa, and we have now the commitment to go forward as a continent, utilizing these strengths across the continent to lift everyone up. And it has the potential of lifting inter-Africa trade by as much as 50%. Well, it's clearly the most exciting development on the free trade agreement landscape today. And at its full implementation, it'll be the single largest single market, trade market in the world by countries, without a doubt. But not all of it is a foregone conclusion. There's still a lot of work to do. I chaired a session this morning on the forthcoming investment protocol. A lot that might come up as we discuss today. Well, the new market created by the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, is estimated to be as large as 1.3 billion people across Africa, with a combined gross domestic product of $3.5 trillion. It has the potential of lifting 30 million Africans, a much needed demography, out of extreme poverty. Inter-Africa trade is projected to grow to about 532 billion by 2035. Well, great interest to Commonwealth interests is that imports will grow by as much as 25%. That is a total of about $310 billion about that same time. Another thing of interest to Commonwealth businesses outside Africa is that 90% of these African countries will require increased services. So the service sector is really one to watch. And as better trade practices become more standardized across the continent, it's without a doubt that foreign direct investment will grow in confidence and therefore grow in numbers. So it's an exciting time for Africa. Africa truly becomes a great opportunity. Now, I'm honored to be chairing this and to leave the heavy lifting to some very distinguished people who are going to be sharing their thoughts with us today while I sip my coffee or something. Let me introduce our panel, and I'd like to welcome Lord Mayor, Alderman William Russell. It's good to see you. The Right Honourable Lord Mayor of the City of London. Alderman, I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend the banquet. I hear it was splendid.
It was very good. You missed a good banquet, but don't worry. Great to be here.
I look forward to the next one, I shall see. But we thank London and Lord Mayor for the support that it gives the council. London is still, one of the default footprints of many African and Commonwealth countries for good reason. It's also a source of many instinctive business relationships. And we know that London is going to play a big role in energizing the free trade area. Next, I'd like to introduce my West African sister, Ms. Nana Ajel Hackman, co-founder and managing partner of Africa Legal Associates. Well, apologies, she's another lawyer, but what can you do without us? Jealously, Ghana is the home to the Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat. And it's just a wonderful host to such an important linchpin for the future of Africa. And we thank Ghana for playing such a large role. And we look forward to her perspective on the discussions. Next is Mr. Wale Oshin. He's the founder and group managing director of Custodian Investments PLC, and also the founder of one of the largest insurance concerns in Nigeria, much of West Africa. He is also one of CWIC's longest standing members and a proud member of the Nigeria Advisory Council, which he vice chairs for me. And I'm delighted to be the chair for as long as they still have me. We'll see about that. You're welcome, Wale. Good to see you. And, dare I say, last but certainly not least, Sir Graham Wrigley, the chairman of CDC, the CDC Group, UK's development finance institution, that has, put so many projects and programs across Africa. We all know the CDC, and we love the brand dearly. We look forward to your perspective on how the free trade agreement may change the investment climate and grow opportunities from the present day into the future. Now,
Good to be here.
Excellent, thank you. Well, I think it's good for me. The Secretariat will have a go at me if I don't put this in. I'd like to remind everybody that CWEIC is a not-for-profit membership organization. We work on behalf of our members, providing bespoke services. If you'd like to know more about how we can help and help your businesses, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of the team. And there I've earned my dinner, I think. So, a couple of housekeeping things. All the rules apply, and I'm sure we're all zoomed out now. We all know the rules, so I won't repeat them. But it is good to know that we'll have a 2-minute round of opening remarks, and then a panel discussion, and then we'll take questions from the audience, which is always very exciting. But I'd like to say that we're very proud to have His Excellency Wenkele Mene, the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat, to give us a video address, and we'll be introducing him later on. But before I do any of that, we're doubly honored, and it is a star-studded panel that we have today. We're doubly honored to have Her Excellency the Honorable Minister Beta Habyarimana, the Minister for Trade and Industry of Rwanda. She's been a minister since March the 15th, 2020. She's an economist and a financial advisor by profession, with over 19 years of experience in the financial industry in both domestic, Pan-African and international institutions. Prior to her appointment, Minister Habyarimana served as Deputy Managing Director of the Bank of Africa, Chief Executive of Agaseke Bank, and Head of Compliance at Banque Populaire de Rwanda. Her area of expertise covers business reshuffling and organizational change. She's also played a key role in establishing the financial ethics and compliance function with the financial industry by setting up the first compliance forums under the Rwanda's Bankers Association. Honourable Minister, could we have your opening address? Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Olusopo. Right Honourable Mayor Alderman William Russell, all distinguished panel, seeing on the call, as well as all the distinguished participants we have to this summit. It has been my pleasure to be invited to be part of it, and I take this opportunity to really look for how we can dig into the African opportunity through the African Free Continental Trade Area. Nowadays, we talk a lot about it, and I think for the few remarks I have today, I would like just to bring again to the whole attention the potential we have through this African Free Continental Area, the AfCFTA. It's not just an African opportunity, it's an opportunity for all of us. We know how, through all the findings, we know that it was revealed that $450 billion were projected in real income gains from the AfCFTA, but knowing that nearly $400 billion will be achieved through non-tariff barriers when they come to be eliminated and trade facilitated. It's important to highlight this today as we seek for the AfCFTA agreement to address all the non-tariff barriers through legal instruments under the trade and good protocols. There's an imperative for us as we progressively lower tariffs, trade facilitation also be brought to the forefront, easing the demands we place on SMEs to trade across the continent. There is a lot the AfCFTA Secretariat is putting in place for the implementation of these goals. Apart from the NTB, there's also the implementation of a mechanism to roll out the reporting mechanism of NTB for member states, which we see as a solution to quickly resolve barriers to trade. The reporting framework needs to be supported and made response to numerous NTBs limiting intra-African trade. The dispute settlement body is also another avenue for addressing NTBs and other limitations to achieve increasing intra-African trade and African opportunity. This process will ensure a level playing field for member states and solidify the commitment made by state parties. But we know also nowadays that the COVID-19 pandemic has clearly demonstrated the need to reimagine the supply chains and localize more industrial and manufactured value-added goods within Africa. We stand to gain and build back better for this pandemic should we cooperate more closely through the continental framework, but also closer trade and investment ties between countries in Africa. For these, I mean the protocols on trade and services, the investment promotion, opening up the services sector to more intra-African competition, while also facilitating intra-African investment. We know that in many African countries, the trade is done with the rest of the world, where African exports basically raw materials. And we would be looking on how to increase the intra-African trade. But I would like to highlight that for the framework of the AfCFTA, it is comprehensively structured to address these limitations and to increase the value-added intra-African trade, not just because of the progressive liberalization of the goods and trade, but also I would like to highlight that this structure goes along with the industrialization process of products and goods for which Africa is good at or which Africa is favored by, like agro-processing or even entering into the green industrialization. We know that there's a lot of opportunity to fully integrate into the global value chain. So when you think about the African opportunity, we think about the global value chain and the regional value chains. And we see that those investments protocol we provide to investors and to private sector assurances. We have the air services agreement opening the market to increase the intra-African business exchange and cooperation. But I would like also, as Mr. Olosi has mentioned, to highlight that the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting and Commonwealth Business Forum will be held in Rwanda, in Kigali. And I would like to highlight how, just a note, I would invite the Commonwealth businesses to believe in the African opportunity and to rise to the occasion, to trust the AfCFTA process and to make it working for us. The legal frameworks are there, but private sector needs to maintain the momentum and pressure on governments to enforce what was agreed. We are glad to see many countries ratifying, but we need an active and engaged business community, a need of capital, expertise, technology, and cooperation between Commonwealth countries and businesses to invest in the fastest growing economies and the large African market so that employment, incomes, and sustainable development can continue to increase. Through the panel and through the discussions going on, let us build together this African opportunity for the Commonwealth whole and for the global improvement. Thank you.
I almost fell for that. I wasn't unmuted. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Thank you for such a well-conceived address. I note that you did mention that one of the biggest change factors in the last year and a half has been the pandemic. And with a free trade agreement in the offing, I think I can start the moderated session with some of the notes that I made while Honourable Minister was speaking, and which is to look at how the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, is going to affect the implementation of rollout of AfCFTA, and to see what can be done to use it either as an opportunity to an opportunity and mitigate it to make sure its challenges aren't as dire as they could be. And for that reason, I'd like to start with inviting Lord Mayor to comment on that, and I'll put the question to you, Lord Mayor. And I'm putting it because I'm very much aware that during your second term that began within that wonderful 2020 year, your mayoral theme was Global UK, the new future, supporting businesses through COVID-19 crisis. Let me just then put to you what your thoughts are. We can see that it has already been demonstrated that to mitigate COVID-19 pandemic, medicines and personal protective equipment need to be produced and moved to where they're needed expeditiously. How do you believe the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Agreement across Africa, can be a tool, or whether it is already a tool, to mitigate the effect of COVID-19 and therefore allowing this free and unhindered trade that is much needed of health products across the continent?
Well, I think I'm on the Board of Trade, even though I've just stepped down, but having worked with the Board of Trade and being a member of the Board of Trade, one of the things that I've learned is that when you come to these free trade agreements, you have a sort of, they come out with estimates of what it's going to do to GDP and how successful it's going to be. And almost 100% of the time, it's actually far more successful than people realize. And it's something the Secretary of State, Liz Truss, is constantly saying. And I agree, we make guesstimates, but bottom line is being a big free trade advocate, I think you'll find that whether it's, as you say, medicines or healthcare, free trade agreements really work very well. And I think it's brilliant that there's such pan-African cooperation is exemplified by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and how you're going to, how that can, apologies for the, I'm in the Mansion House, there are a few noises of ambulances going by, but estimates show that 1.1 billion people, and this market will be the largest in the world by 2040. You know what this is going to do for Africa. Coming back to the Rwanda minister, your comments about the potential, Africa has had that potential for so long. And I think this could really open up that potential and change so much for Africa. And here in the City of London, I mean, we're excited to see the growth of a market where we have, as you so rightly pointed out, have such deep links with, and we're eager to help. Whether it was, I had the President Kenyatta here at the Mansion House in July, and we're supporting the Nairobi International Financial Center, or engaging with African stakeholders or UAK businesses in Africa directly. So I think it is an exciting time, and I hope that we're able to achieve this, because more often than not, as I say, when you come to these free trade agreements, they deliver far more than any of us realize.
Yeah, there you go. That's certainly very encouraging. It is an exciting time. There's a lot to gain, and there are a lot of opportunities across the continent and for third-party countries doing businesses with Africa. And yeah, we look forward to it. And like I say, London is that heartstring that we all generally default to. Fantastic. Nana, you're up next. Currently, the percentage of trade that African countries do with each other is an abysmal 16%. At best, 18%. The bulk of the continent's trade is with the rest of the world. And we're not saying that shouldn't continue, but we want to see an increase in IAT. Most of Africa's exports are in raw materials, particularly the extractive commodities like oil and gas and minerals, which are vulnerable to market volatility. How will the CFTA, the African Free Trade Agreement, change this dynamic? And what sectors do you think are ripe for growth as a result of this increase in IAT in intra-African trade?
Super. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the beautiful introduction earlier. If I'm to go straight into it, to add to the statistics in your question, earlier this year, a study done by Baker McKenzie revealed that a significant proportion of goods, manufactured goods traded among African countries originate from other parts of the world. And if Africa is to change this dynamic, then I would say that we really need to be deliberate and consistent in our efforts to diversify our economies from our reliance on our natural resource wealth and to industrialize. we need to build that infrastructure that is needed to ensure value addition and also to promote the free movement of goods and services across the continent. And by so saying, I mean our roads, our ports, rail networks, pipelines, refineries, etc. And all these things that would boost trade among African economies. Also, very importantly, how we implement the rules of origin under the AfCFTA agreement will be a critical test of whether Africa is to really be successful in capturing the benefits, the value that is created by AfCTA. On key sectors, I would say manufacturing, services, real estate, and tech, definitely. Of course, for all these things to happen, affordable access to affordable power, being a synchronon to the drive for industrialization, will be very important. And in that sense, a few developments across the continent, like 5,000 megawatts solar power project being undertaken in Botswana and Namibia, and the LNG terminal project of the port of Tema in Ghana, would be really important to help hitherto unbankable projects be realized across the continent.
Thank you very much for that, Nana. Taking off from that, or rather staying in that oil and gas space, let me put this to Wale Oshin. And you're from an oil and gas and mineral economy. Oil and gas and mineral resources account for more than 75% of Africa's exports. And the continent's potential growth in these sectors is significant. However, only a limited amount of impact from these sectors is actually felt by the local economy. How will the AfCFTA help retain more of the benefits of its extractive wealth, ensuring that more value addition appears on the streets of the continent? This is great hope.
Well, thank you very much, Shubo. I think, like Naha said, we have the challenge right now in Africa where, we have the issues of being unable to trade with one another because of the high tariffs, taxes, border controls, and costs that we find ourselves having to charge one another. So invariably, oil is exported to foreign countries, and that has been the case over the years. But with AfCTA, these taxes and tariffs will be non-existent, and it'll be a lot cheaper for us to be able to trade, and export oil and mineral resources to one another. It'll be cheaper to buy, because hitherto it was very expensive to buy because of the challenges that we have. So with this, and with the population that we have, with the market that we have, it is expected that the big investors across the globe will find Africa very attractive. They'll find it attractive to invest, because then they will be investing in a continent that has rules that are homogeneous, that has a level playing field. So if they're going to invest so much money bringing into the continent, especially in the area of the extractive industry, which is quite expensive, this is expected also to build capacity, within the continent. It will help in terms of employment. A lot of people will be taken out of unemployment and will be put into jobs. These are some of the benefits that we would derive, once we're able, to implement most of the terms of AfCTA. Also, across the continent, we would definitely improve on our standards, because there will be competition across board, and therefore the quality of what is produced, will be of high standard. And not only will we be able to trade amongst ourselves, it will also help in terms of exporting to other countries too. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one thing that members of CWIC, as well as country members of Commonwealth at large, will be interested in it is, how will this translate into encouragement or promotion and therefore facilitation of the investment climate and increasing the ability for them to invest with more confidence. Because it's one thing that we do need intra-Africa trade, but we will continue to deal with third-party states. And that, for me, it requires, let me take that back. For one thing, we will see better investment practices, and the landscape is going to improve because generally we will improve ourselves in order to deal with ourselves. And therefore we'll have to try and start investing in each other's countries. So I'm using this to segue into the question I'm asking Sir Graham. Being of the CDC, who always take a helicopter view of Commonwealth issues. Africa is typified by varying levels of development, with some African countries having a disparate level of infrastructure development from one another. How will the implementation of the AfCFTA help harmonize regional and country-specific development so that in lifting one another, we lift each other and we lift the continent in order to attract that FDI and be sticky to it, to keep it?
Great. Well, thank you, Supo, and thank you, Lord Marland and Samantha, for all the great work you've done bringing us all together, not just now, but all the way through the last COVID year. Just fantastic. So CDC, as you say, Supo, 100% owned by the UK government. Africa is in our blood since we were created in 1948, and we have a lot of experience of infrastructure. We commit $1 to $1.5 billion a year in Africa, and companies we've supported generate over 8% of energy in the continent. So I think, to answer your question and build on what the Lord Mayor said, we think that the free trade area and infrastructure go hand in hand in a circular partnership, and will feed each other. And, it is impossible to have economic development without even distribution of infrastructure. And we define infrastructure not just power, but we mustn't forget that is crucial. 600 million people in Africa do not have proper access to a light switch, and what that means for business, education, and human life, but also ports, financial transactions, and data. So it's incredibly important that this works. And let me give you, to answer your question, a few examples of how we see this working well. So we supported the Aga Khan Economic Foundation in the first private sector common resource hydro project, Ruzizi, which started in 2012, went to tender, and it only went to the PPA in 2019. It's a fantastic role model, but we hope that as Africa and this free trade area and all the associated agreements, the great work done in Ghana happen, it won't take 7 years to get these things off the ground. And so I think but it's a fantastic role model, and it's great to have the Rwanda minister with us today. I think the second point is innovation is easier in infrastructure when you think across a continent rather than by country. And I'll give you an example of that also in the infrastructure space is solar home systems. Everybody knows about M-Pesa and how that's been a global role model coming out of Africa. But CDC is invested in eight of the 10 largest solar home systems in Africa. Together they support over 38 million people. And it's been fantastic to watch the innovation of pay-as-you-go with these companies developing M-COPA, Greenlight Planet, not working by country, but on a continental basis. And I think, having harmonization within the free trade area will encourage other innovation. And the third point is scale. And the Lord Mayor knows this better than me, but London is a great conduit to invest in Africa. But one of the biggest problems that we see working with pension fund managers, institutional investors, is scale. How do you go to scale? And infrastructure is great because it can absorb significant amounts of capital, but particularly if those projects are played out across the continent. CDC backed Mo Ibrahim in Celtel back in the late 90s, the first mobile phone. And we're delighted to be backing Strive now as he rolls out, put $200 million into the vision of liquid telecom to address the fact that only 20% of demand for data centers is met at the moment in Africa, as he builds out Cape to Cairo, Mombasa to Kinshasa, a data fiber network. And so I think all these examples show that as free trade develops, countries get used to working together in partnership, and investors see the potential for the growth that we know will be there with 2 billion people in the continent within a few decades. I think it will become a virtuous circle. So I hope that answers your question.
It certainly does. It certainly does, and it leads me to a question that I'm going to try and see how many of you I can just sort of like, if I could say, bully into answering before we go into the Q&A. And Honourable Minister, I would never bully you, but if I could just put this to you first. Now, the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is to be held in Rwanda, and I'd like a couple of you to think about this. If you were to name that thing that Commonwealth businesses need to do to ensure they benefit from this African opportunity, this rise in Africa, how do you think members could ready themselves to take the benefit of what is the benefit of the CFTA?
Thank you. As I said, the benefits are quite many, but it requires the business communities to dig in, to really explore. And when I talked about trusting them, is that I believe that each country has its strength, not considered as just domestically, but really at the regional point of view. When I said that we should look into the green industrialization, is that Africa is green. So investors for all other countries can look into how to join with the local, even business operators, to invest in the green industrialization. We know that agriculture is among one of the most important sectors, but at a very basic level. The whole chain of agro-processing is something where there's huge place of improving and investing to promote it. This is one of the areas. We know as well that Africa has a very young population. So for all innovation, for all tech businesses, there are opportunities there. And we also know that some countries, or many, have put in place a lot of incentives to create a red carpet to investors. This also is an area where we should also explore, because we believe that it has also its unique way. And I think that having also a strong mechanism in reducing the barriers between the countries in Africa is also an open window to other countries in other continents to have a wider market. I think it's something also very, very important to pay attention to. There is a lot to do with some of the countries who have a very high growth rate in terms of economy. There are some who are creating some hubs for the financial sectors. I think it's also something to explore because it brings a lot of opportunities. But one point also mentioned by one of the panelists, but I also fully believe, is that Africa needs to have sustainable and regional infrastructure put in place. for all the investment to be done, it's also a great opportunity because not just for the infrastructure itself, but for connecting the markets. This is a few I'm just mentioning, but I would also again want to highlight that COVID-19 taught us. Why not with pharmaceuticals? Why not with all the products? Because we know that Africa is among the most important buyers or consumers of those products. So when you look at the business community and we look at the expertise of each potential investor, we think that AfCFTA is really an opportunity bringing more win-win situation for investors, for the countries, for the continent, and globally speaking.
Right, that's this is the benefit of the CWIC, that you get the inside gist right here and you hear it live. So I think Commonwealth businesses need to know from what the minister said. You need to study the terrain and play to the advantages in where you want to invest in. Lord Mayor, could I bring you into this?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think Commonwealth businesses need to do to take the true benefit of this African opportunity?
So I mean, just following on the ministers and actually what Sir Graham said, by creating, single markets and taking trade barriers down, you create opportunities for outside capital to come into what the minister just said about infrastructure projects, but also around, there's the trust in sustainable growth. And that's what capital is looking to do. And I use the word sustainable because sustainability is on every company's agenda now. So, that is with climate change, and we've got COP26 here. And one of the things I've been promoting as Lord Mayor is financing green and greening finance. And that is the future. Eventually you won't use the word green. Everything around finance has to be sustainable. And that's something that, in a way, because you're starting, well, not from scratch, but you know what I mean. You're starting from a different level where you can actually bring that all into the trade agreements, which we're doing now with the new free trade agreements we're doing around the world after Brexit. So what I would say to businesses is that, sustainability, make sure that they're good projects where capital can flow. And I've said it around the world that there is, the capital is there. And the capital is there for Africa. The capital is there around the world for good, sustainable projects. And, you've just went through some numbers about the population, 2 billion and 600 million without electricity or light switches. You can see the opportunity. And I think that's something which is just enormous for Africa and very exciting. The one final thing I will say is I look at the City of London. One of our huge success stories is around fintech, and fintech is, it's financial inclusion. And on this little phone, I haven't got mine in front of me, but suddenly the world can do things that they never thought they'd be able to do. You don't have to go to the bank and open a bank account. You can do it on your phone. And that is the other massive opportunity for Africa as some of these fintech companies start to move around the world. And I think that is incredibly exciting for the future of Africa as well.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. And I'm going to come back to this question to the rest of the panel, but we've easily moved into the Q&A session. So I'm going to try and take some of the questions that are popping up in the Q&A forum while I come back to some of you to be able to reflect on these on that very point. And while we just about still have the minister, there's one question for you before you go. CHOGM and the Commonwealth Business Forum is a great platform to present African opportunities to global business leaders. How will the forum be used to amplify Africa's message, and how will AfCFTA feature? It looks as if you've talked about it, but maybe you want to address that for the member of the audience. He doesn't say who he is.
Thank you. I think the Business Summit is a great opportunity. Having the Commonwealth Enterprise Investment Council and having the summit is a great opportunity because when you talk about AfCFTA, actually, we talk also about all the other mechanisms put in place to sustain the intra-African trade. And through that, let's say, it was planned to have this kind of IATF trade fairs. This is a place to connect, to present, to know what is in place, and even to organize it regionally speaking. At that stage, this kind of summits allows people to meet and to know what is really there and to take the opportunities to even discuss deeper to that. And AfCFTA is also a channel to link all the business owners to other opportunities, like when it comes to continental trade fairs. It's something really very important when you have the showcase. We'll have very soon an intra-African trade fair in Durban in 2 months from now. This was also something planned where you can showcase what is there, and it creates open windows to the business people. But as well, when you talk about the Commonwealth, there's a lot of many countries coming together in one place. So in brief is what I would say beyond what I was saying before. The opportunity are there, but it requires people to meet, to discuss, to share, to show what they have, and to believe in it.
Oh, thank you very much. And that's a lovely note to end that response on. Thank you very much. Well, I've got one here from Rebecca from the Princess Trust International. And it's a question that really, really vexes me as well, because for the life of me, I know one of the shortfalls has been communication. And she says, our work focuses on skills development with young entrepreneurs. The current information available on AfCFTA isn't very digestible for young people. I dare say for many old people as well. What it covers and how it can be leveraged? How can this information be made more accessible for young people? And are there any plans to make them more accessible? Now, I know there's nobody from the real policy side of things here. And so it's very difficult to know if there are any plans, but maybe one of you might be aware. And I'm going to take a dig at Nana to see if she thinks of what should be done to improve the information available and digest it for. I mean, Africa is such a young-aged continent, and therefore the future of much of African businesses, small and large, is with the young people. And I dare say some old people who just don't understand what this is all about.
Yes, thank you, Supo. I think really if this is to go down well, all around Africa, people are excited about the AfCFTA having come about, but not many people really understand what it means. There is a role for the public sector, definitely, but I think it's time for the private sector to play a more assertive role in African economies. And in that way, I think what we need to do is to identify the opportunities, build capacity, both on the tech side and other skills that will be needed to help us to thrive in modern business. And for both the private sector and the state side on making information accessible to the youth and all of that, I wouldn't put it only at the doorstep of state parties. I would say that both the state side and public entities and private entities should collaborate on this. And there are a lot of things that we can do to improve this. Importantly, we need to invest in youth, in girls, in women, and other potentially marginalized groups to make sure they understand the opportunities that are presented, that they are really brought up to acquire the skills that are needed to really satisfy the opportunities that AfCFTA has presented.
Well, thank you. And by dragging in the gender card there, we seem to drop somewhat in our obligation to provide inclusion. We're down to one woman. We'll see how we can make up for that. Because the next question is related to that. Nana, And if you think you've answered it, I will let you go. But the question goes like this. The AfCFTA clearly focuses on improving the lives of women. We debate that. Women account for around 70% of the informal cross-border traders in Africa, correct? How will tariff reductions under AfCFTA create an opportunity to close the gender income gap and the opportunity for SMEs to access new markets? You've touched on it, so if you want to duck it, I'll let you duck it.
Yes, definitely, Supo. As an advocate for women, I can't let that go.
How did I guess?
You know, that the various studies that have shown that women account for the significant proportion of trade, cross-border trade, and the informal sector. And in Africa as well, the informal sector and SME businesses make up about 90% of jobs. And so what I would say is that it's going to have a big impact. This reduction of tariffs is going to have a big impact, and it's also going to help to bring these informal cross-border trading into the formal sector. I would like to also add, whilst we urge Commonwealth businesses to invest in Africa, that there are a whole lot of opportunities in the SME sector to scale up and to meet the opportunities that AfCFTA brings. So it's a sector to look into, to invest into, and once we invest into this sector, we'll be also solving the problems of inequality, addressing SDG 5, for instance, when it comes to the gender gap. And I think these are things that are worth putting a lot of thought into.
Great. I see Sir Graham's hand up. I was coming to you anyway, but let me hear why your hand's up, because I have a question for you.
So I think I agree with everything Nana said, and all the studies and our own experience show how supporting and investing behind women is a smart thing to do. And in 2018, CDC, together with DFC, the US equivalent of CDC, kind of got a whole group of DFIs together to set up the 2X challenge, which is basically a gender lens investing collaborative. So far together, we've committed $7 billion, and we'll be going up to 15 billion in the next few years. And wherever possible, CDC looks for an investment through a gender lens. And that is part of, a broader focus on inclusion, which, as the Lord Mayor said early on, sustainability, development, and the SDGs is absolutely crucial. Everybody wants to do that, enlighten investors. And of course, CDC investing UK taxpayers' money needs to be at the front of that. And so I think, again, it comes back to thinking across the continent and spreading knowledge will really help this initiative.
Great. So while I still have you, could you reflect on my earlier question? Imagine you're advising a Commonwealth business to take good advantage of this African opportunity. How best would you prepare that Commonwealth business? Very quickly.
Commonwealth business or Commonwealth
Commonwealth businesses, business entities wishing to come into African trade.
I think you should focus on working with local partners. There's amazing human talent in Africa. So working with, Africa is a diverse continent. It's 54 countries. And everybody must understand that. Work with people who know the market. Go in, thinking of the long term. Have patience. Don't expect unbelievable returns. Don't think like this is investing in Google. You're not going to get 5 times your money. But the risks of investing in Africa are often overstated. Moody's did a study between 1985 and 2015 of infrastructure projects and default rates. In Southeast Asia, they were 8.5%. In Western Europe, 3.8%. And in Africa, 2.7%. So think of local partners, do something that works with the country's specific area in, but thinking boldly, and be patient and understand that it's not going to be investing in Google, but the risks aren't as big as people often think outside the continent.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. That's excellent response. We've just got just enough time for me to put the question to Wale as well. So you're having coffee with a couple of Commonwealth country businessmen, and they're thinking of Africa. What would you advise them best to do to take care of this, to take advantage of this African opportunity? You're having coffee, not wine. So,
yeah, thank you very much. Well, I think I'll be talking about the market. Of course, there's you've got a huge market that they can take advantage of. Sir Graham has spoken, about establishing relationships, which is very critical, because that's a mistake a lot of investors make when they come to Africa. They think they can go it on their own. And businesses in Africa are very localized, and it's unique. The way Africa works is completely different from the way the rest of the world works. So it's always advisable, to have a partner or have a strategic alliance with a local that will handhold you in navigating the route. I also would, suggest that, in doing so, of course, the confidence is that the ease of doing business, which is also another significant area that a lot of foreign investors are particular about, is completely taken off the table with AfCFTA, because most of the issues in the area of ease of doing business are completely dealt with the exception of Rwanda, in Africa. Most countries in Africa, you have issues one way or the other. So really and truly, the ease of doing business AfCFTA takes care of that, because you then have a level playing field. You have laws, you have arbitration, you have, processes that you can use to resolve disputes, you can use to resolve issues when you come into the continent. So those are things that I will tell them, and in terms of advice.
Well, that's brilliant advice, and they probably have to pay for your coffee for that advice, because this is remarkable. Nana, and I know Nana will agree with me. One of the tips I would give them is look for a good lawyer. I'm not by any way, I'm not plugging myself in.
Definitely.
Excellent.
I couldn't have said it better.
Excellent. Well, this is great. We've got some more questions and answers, but we've also, it looks as if we're drawing close to the time when we'll have to hear the address of the Secretary General of AfCFTA, and then we'll take some closing comments, if there are any, from all of you. Is it okay if I've got somebody on the technical team out there? Is it okay to ask for that now? The address of His Excellency the Secretary General Wamkele Mene.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this very important dialogue on trade and investment in the Commonwealth countries. As you may be aware, Africa now has a free trade area. The African Continental Free Trade Area was signed. The agreement establishing the AfCFTA was signed by 54 countries out of 55, ratified by 41 countries out of 55. To me, this signals a very strong commitment, Africa's very strong commitment to trade liberalization, reduction of barriers to trade, reduction of tariffs, reduction of non-tariff barriers, and a commitment to establishing a single set of rules for trade and investment in Africa. For too long, our economy in Africa has been characterized by smallness of national economies, lack of economies of scale, lack of industrial capacity, and a continued over-reliance on the export of primary commodities. All of this has contributed to Africa having a very, very small percentage of intra-Africa trade, which is 18%, vis-à-vis other parts of the world, other regions, where, for example, in Europe, intra-European trade is over 70%. In North America, intra-North America trade is over 60%. Africa is on the lower end of intra-regional trade. That is why we have established this African Continental Free Trade Area to significantly boost intra-Africa trade, to accelerate industrial development in Africa by creating value chains that link all African countries to a better and more competitive regional and continental economy. One of the keystones and one of the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area is to accelerate industrial development in Africa. We have to reduce our over-reliance on the export of primary commodities, and through the AfCFTA, we're embarking on a journey for sustained, accelerated industrial development and productive capacity improvement. We are committed to the modalities of reducing barriers to trade that we agreed to in the agreement establishing the AfCFTA. Amongst other objectives in the modalities, we commit that in 13 years' time, we will be trading all goods in Africa. 97% of goods in Africa will be traded at zero duty. And we will complement that with a series of protocols that are related to economic activity that are intended to give a further boost to intra-Africa trade. This agreement is comprehensive. It has a depth of liberalization, which is balanced with developmental imperatives. It includes trade in goods, trade in services. We will also have a protocol on intellectual property rights, a protocol on investment protection, a protocol on digital trade, and a protocol on women and young people in trade. The protocol on women and young people in trade is particularly important because we want to make sure that the agreement is inclusive and that the benefits, the developmental benefits, are shared across African countries. If we do not include these very important segments of our society, women and young people, in the benefits of this agreement, by making sure that small medium enterprises are part of the network of value chains that benefit, we will be making a very critical mistake. We are determined to make sure that big corporations in Africa, as well as small corporations and small medium enterprises, that they too see the benefits of free trade in Africa. We are also conscious of the fact that from time to time there will be disputes in a trade agreement. That is why we have operationalized the dispute settlement body, which will adjudicate on all disputes under the agreement. And it is a dispute settlement mechanism that is based on the fundamental principles of international trade law. This market is very important, not only for other Commonwealth countries, but the African market is important for the world. We have a combined GDP today of 3.4 trillion United States dollars, which is projected by the year 2035 to be close to 8 trillion United States dollars. We have a combined population of 1.3 billion people, a fast-growing middle class, fast-growing population of young people. By the year 2050, Africa will have the world's largest population of young people under the age of 25. This, in my view, the strength of and the resilience of Africa's economy on the back of the AfCFTA is what we present to the rest of the world as a value proposition for investing. We offer UK investors the opportunity to invest in this fast-growing and dynamic market, which right up until 2019 was the second fastest growing region in terms of investment after Asia. Even with the pandemic, we are determined to leverage on the AfCFTA to make sure that we expedite our recovery post-COVID-19 by aggressively breaking down barriers to trade and breaking down barriers to intra-Africa investment. I'm very, very excited about the partnership that we have with the government of the UK. Recently, we signed a memorandum of understanding which emphasizes on areas of cooperation between ourselves, that is to say, the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, as well as the government of the UK. We identified very important areas of cooperation, such as trade facilitation, investment facilitation, and the building of capacity for the negotiation process, which the UK has supported even before we became a secretariat. I therefore want to close by re-emphasizing the fact that Africa is open for business, Africa is open for investment from the UK, and this agreement, this very important trade agreement, the AfCFTA, offers UK investors market access opportunities as well as legal protections that are embedded in the protocol on dispute settlement. I wish you very, very successful deliberations. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, excellent. That was a nice treat. Pity he couldn't be here, but the speech was nonetheless richer for his delivery. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And he does send his regrets for not being able to attend in person, well, virtually in person, if that makes any sense. But I think that I got three nuggets. Disputes always excite me, and how the predictability of dispute resolution increases investment decision making. The fact that there's certainty and predictability about how disputes which are inevitable will be resolved was a great thing to hear. I stand corrected. I thought we were still at 40 ratifications. He said 41. I'm going to be scouring the internet to find out who the 41st was. But I thought the most exciting piece that I had heard, I'm not sure which of you had heard that before, was the MOU signed with the United Kingdom and the Secretariat. I didn't know that, and that's wonderful news. And may we continue to do more of that, because as I say, third-party countries, third-party organizations are just as important as intra-African trade. So it just about is going to bring us close to the end. I'm going to try and see if I could do a quick fire last word from each of you. Just any last words that you want to pitch in before we bring this very successful session, in my opinion, if I must say so, to a close. And literally the summit. We have the last leg. We got the baton. I could see the tape. We mustn't drop it, and we must close with applause. So, any last words, Lord Mayor?
Yeah. So my last words would be: this is a huge opportunity, as we know, and it's been made very clear. There are two words I've written down, which I genuinely believe that can change many things in the world, particularly in Africa, and it's technology and innovation. And if we address those two things, the talent is there in Africa, and certainly you will have the City of London support, and as you heard from the Secretary General, the UK support in making sure that Africa gets to where it deserves to be and should be. And I'm very excited for the next number of years going forward for Africa. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Wale, just anything, a quick last word? Wale Oshin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to reiterate the fact that Africa is open, and with the ease of doing business and with the inclusion that's involved, in businesses across Africa, we can only look towards a much bigger market and look towards a much more interesting market for investors. So yes, I want to thank you. I want to thank the organizers for making this possible. This has been very exciting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Wale. Sir Graham.
Yeah, I just want to say CDC really looks forward to, as part of Her Majesty's government offering to Africa, looks forward to partnering with African countries to help sustainable, inclusive, green growth. And we're really looking forward to Chogam.
And I did this deliberately, Nana, since, in case you were giving me daggers, I kept you to the last because you're the special one, not all this lot. So thank you very much. Will you give us your last comment?
Super. Africa's prosperity has often been presented as a future reality, but with the implementation of the AfCFTA, I would say that future is right here and now. I would rehash what everyone has said, that we should see the agreement as what it is, a means to an end and not an end in itself, and do what we need to do. I'm glad to say that even in our legal practice at ALA, we are already beginning to see a lot of exciting things happening. A new era of public-private sector collaboration, and it's refreshing. And I'd end by saying it's an exciting time to be African.
Oh, great! Thank you very much. That's a wonderful note. So it remains for me to thank you, Sir Graham, Chairman of the CDC Group. Thank you for coming. Nana Hatman, founding partner and managing partner of Africa Legal Associates, almost my namesake. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, the Right Honourable William Russell. Thank you so much. Mr. Wale Oshin, the Chairman of Custodian Investments PLC, thank you very much for coming. And before the Secretariat really gets me, I've got to thank you all for attending this last session of the Commonwealth Trade and Investment Summit. I hope you found it valuable, and I believe you did. And CWIC intends to restart its travel program later in this year. And quite rightly, the first two countries that will be visited are Nigeria and Ghana, in that order. If you are interested in joining these visits, please speak with the team. You're laughing at me. Many thanks. Thank you very much, and have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you for coming.